Sitting here in my peaceful apartment, sunlight streaming through the windows, it's hard to believe what I've been through. 6 months ago, I was in a courtroom, facing off against my own family in a legal battle that would change my life forever. The courtroom was tense, filled with the weight of betrayal and lies. My parents, Arthur and Vivian, sat at the plaintiff's table, their faces cold and determined. My sister, Iris, sat beside them, her eyes red-rimmed and her expression pious. They were trying to sue me for $682,000 for a house I never agreed to buy. As I sat there, waiting for the judge to begin, I couldn't help but think back to how it all started. Growing up in the Thompson household, there was no doubt about who the favorite child was. Iris was the life of the party, always charming and outgoing. She could make anyone laugh with her jokes and her infectious personality. Teachers adore her, and neighbors always had kind words to say about her. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, more interested in numbers and books than in socializing. I spent my free time poring over textbooks and studying for exams, determined to get good grades and make something of myself. When I passed my accounting exam at 25, I thought my parents would be proud. Instead, my father asked me when I was going to get married and start having kids, just like Iris. Iris had gotten married at 22 and already had 2 children by the time she was 26. My parents had been more than happy to help them out financially, paying for their rent and other expenses without a second thought. When I graduated from college with student loans, I paid them off on my own with no help from anyone. Over the years, I started to realize that I could never measure up to Iris in my parents' eyes. No matter how hard I worked or how many achievements I had, they always seemed to favor her. It was like I was living in her shadow, constantly being compared to her and coming up short. Things came to a head 3 years ago when Iris called me asking for $15,000. She said she needed it to buy a new car because her old one had broken down. She promised to pay me back within 6 months, but I knew better. She still owed me $8,000 from the last time she'd asked for money, and I'd never seen a dime of it. I told her no, and she got angry. She said I was being selfish and that I didn't care about her or her family. That night, my mother called me crying, telling me that I was being cold and heartless. She said that family was supposed to stick together and that I should be willing to help Iris out. I tried to explain to her that I had my own financial responsibilities and that I couldn't just give money away willy-nilly, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept telling me that I was wrong and that I needed to change my attitude. A few months later, Iris asked me to co-sign her apartment lease. She said that the landlord wanted to guarantee her and that her credit wasn't good enough. I told her no again, explaining that co-signing meant that I would be responsible if she defaulted on the lease. She got angry again, and this time my father joined in. He said that I was being ungrateful and that I owed it to my sister to help her out. He refused to speak to me for 3 weeks, giving me the cold shoulder every chance he got. Then one day, I received a letter in the mail from a bank. It was a second notice for a mortgage payment that was overdue. I was confused because I had never taken out a mortgage. I looked at the property address, and it was for a house in the suburbs that I had never heard of. I called the bank immediately, and they told me that I was listed as a co-signer on the mortgage. I was shocked. I had never signed anything, and I had no idea how my name had gotten on the mortgage. I called my mother and demanded an explanation. She was evasive at first, but eventually, she admitted that she and my father had put my name on the mortgage without my knowledge or consent. They said that Iris needed the house for her family and that they had decided that I should help pay for it. I was furious. I told them that they had committed fraud and that I would not be responsible for the mortgage. They didn't seem to care. They said that family was more important than the law and that I should be willing to do whatever it took to help my sister. They threatened to sue me if I didn't agree to pay the mortgage, and they even went so far as to enlist Iris as a witness against me. They claimed that I had made a verbal promise at a family dinner 2 years ago to help with the mortgage, but I knew that was a lie. I had never promised anything of the sort. I knew that I needed to fight back. I called my friend Leo, who was a lawyer. He agreed to take my case, and he started gathering evidence to prove that I had been the victim of fraud. He found emails and text messages that showed that Iris had been trying to add me to the mortgage application without my knowledge. He also found evidence that the notary who had certified my signature had been a friend of my father's, and that he had not followed proper protocols. As the trial approached, my family tried to turn the public against me. Iris posted a long, emotional message on social media, claiming that I was a selfish and heartless person who was willing to let her and her family lose their home. Her message got a lot of attention, and many of our friends and relatives started to side with her. They called me names and told me that I was a terrible person. I was hurt and angry, but I refused to let their words get to me. I knew that I was in the right, and I was determined to prove it. On the day of the trial, I arrived at the courthouse early, dressed in a suit and looking professional. Leo met me in the hallway, and he told me to stay calm and focused. He gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder and reminded me that we had a solid case. The truth was on our side. When I walked into the courtroom, I could feel all eyes on me. My parents sat at the plaintiff's table with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit named Marcus Hendricks. Iris sat behind them in the gallery, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Her husband, Derek, had his arm around her shoulders, looking appropriately somber. A few of my aunts and uncles were scattered throughout the room, most of them shooting me dirty looks. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, and we all stood. She was a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She settled into her seat and reviewed the case file for a moment before looking up. "This is Thompson v. Thompson," she said, her voice clear and authoritative. "A case involving an alleged verbal contract and mortgage obligation. Mr. Hendricks, you may present your opening statement." Marcus stood and buttoned his suit jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor. This is a straightforward case about a broken promise and a daughter's obligation to her family. The plaintiffs, Arthur and Vivian Thompson, are hardworking parents who sacrificed everything to raise two daughters. Their youngest daughter, Iris Bennett, needed help purchasing a home for her growing family. At a family dinner in June 2 years ago, the defendant, their eldest daughter, verbally agreed to co-sign the mortgage and share in the financial responsibility. The defendant has since reneged on this promise, leaving her elderly parents on the hook for a $682,000 mortgage they cannot afford. We will prove through testimony and evidence that this verbal agreement was made in good faith and that the defendant is now attempting to shirk her family responsibilities. I felt my jaw clench. The way he told it, I sounded like some kind of monster. Leo squeezed my hand under the table. Judge Morrison nodded. "Mr. Chen, your opening statement." Leo stood, and I could see the confidence in his posture. "Your Honor, this case is not about a broken promise. It's about identity theft and fraud. My client never agreed to co-sign any mortgage. In fact, she had no knowledge of the mortgage until she received a delinquency notice in the mail. The plaintiffs fraudulently added my client's name to mortgage documents without her knowledge or consent. We will present clear evidence, including witness testimony, digital communications, and notarization records that prove my client is the victim here, not the perpetrator. The plaintiffs are attempting to use the court system to force my client to pay for a debt she never agreed to incur." The judge made some notes. "Very well, Mr. Hendricks, call your first witness." The plaintiffs call Arthur Thompson to the stand. My father stood and walked to the witness stand with his head held high. He was wearing his Sunday best, a navy suit that was slightly too tight around the middle. After being sworn in, he settled into the chair and folded his hands in his lap. Marcus approached him with a friendly smile. "Mr. Thompson, can you tell the court about your relationship with your daughter, the defendant?" My father's expression softened. "She's my eldest. I love her very much, even though we've had our difficulties over the years." "What kind of difficulties?" "Well, she's always been very independent, stubborn, really. Never wanted to accept help from family, even when she needed it. She's always kept herself at a distance from us. I bit my tongue. That wasn't true at all, but I knew better than to react. Can you tell the court about the family dinner in June, 2 years ago? My father nodded. Of course. We were all gathered at our house for Iris's daughter's birthday party. There were about 15 of us there, family, some friends. During dinner, Iris mentioned that she and Derek were looking to buy a house. They'd been renting for years, and they wanted something more stable for the kids. And what was the defendant's response? She said she thought that was a great idea. Then I asked her if she would be willing to help her sister out, maybe costing the mortgage since Iris's credit wasn't the best. And she said yes. She said family should help family. My stomach dropped. He was lying through his teeth, and he was doing it so smoothly. Did anyone else hear this conversation? Marcus asked. Oh yes, several people. My wife Vivian was there, Iris and Derek, my brother Tom, his wife Sandra. We were all sitting around the dining room table. And after this conversation, what happened? Well, we moved forward with the mortgage application. We thought everything was settled. Then a few months ago, she just changed her mind, said she never agreed to it, left us holding the bag. Marcus nodded sympathetically. No further questions, Your Honor. Judge Morrison looked at Leo. Mr. Chen, you may cross-examine. Leo stood and approached my father with a measured pace. Mr. Thompson, you said this conversation took place at a birthday party for your granddaughter. How old was she turning? My father blinked. I believe she was turning 4. 4 years old. And you claim there were 15 people at this party. Around that, yes. Yet you're only naming 6 people who supposedly heard this conversation. Where were the other 9? My father shifted in his seat. Well, some were in other rooms, I suppose. The kids were playing in the living room. So this important financial discussion happened in the middle of a children's birthday party. With cake and presents and children running around, we were having dinner. The kids were occupied. Leo nodded slowly. Mr. Thompson, do you have any written record of this agreement? A text message, an email, anything? No, it was a verbal agreement. Did you or your daughter sign anything that day? Any documents at all? No. Did you discuss the specific terms of this agreement? The amount of the mortgage, the monthly payments, how long the agreement would last? My father hesitated. We discussed it in general terms. General terms, Leo repeated. So let me get this straight. You claim that my client verbally agreed to a financial obligation of $682,000 at a 4-year-old's birthday party, and you never put anything in writing, never discussed specific terms, and never had her sign any documents indicating her agreement. That's how family works, Mr. Chen, we trust each other's word. Leo paused, letting that statement hang in the air. If you trust each other's word so much, Mr. Thompson, why are we here in court today? Marcus objected. Argumentative, Your Honor. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Move on, Mr. Chen. Mr. Thompson. When did you actually add my client's name to the mortgage application? I don't remember the exact date. Was it before or after this alleged birthday party conversation? My father's eyes darted. To his lawyer. After, I suppose. You suppose, you don't know for certain. It was after. Leo walked back to our table and picked up a document. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Exhibit A, the mortgage application dated March 15th, 3 months before the alleged agreement. My heart started pounding. I hadn't known about that. Marcus stood quickly. Objection, Your Honor, we haven't been provided with this exhibit in discovery. Leo turned to him calmly. We received this document from the bank only yesterday, Your Honor, in response to our subpoena. We provided it to opposing counsel this morning before the trial began. Judge Morrison looked at Marcus. Is that correct? Marcus's jaw tightened. We received something this morning, yes, but then the objection is overruled. Continue, Mr. Chen. Leo handed the document to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Mr. Thompson, this mortgage application clearly shows my client's name and signature on a form dated 3 months before the birthday party, where you claim she made a verbal agreement. How do you explain that? 1543. My father's face went red. I must have gotten the dates confused. It's been 2 years. Confused about a 3-month difference? Leo pressed. Mr. Thompson, isn't it true that you added my client's name to this mortgage application without her knowledge or consent? No. That's not true. Then how did her signature get on this document? She must have signed it and forgotten. Leo raised his eyebrows. She forgot signing a mortgage application for nearly $700,000. Mr. Thompson, have you ever applied for a mortgage before? Yes, several times. And did you forget any of those occasions? No, but... So you remember your mortgage applications. But you expect this court to believe that my client, a certified public accountant who deals with financial documents every single day, simply forgot signing mortgage documents. My father didn't answer. Mr. Thompson, where was my client when this document was signed? I don't know. You don't know because she wasn't there. Was she? She could have been. Leo walked back to our table and picked up another document. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit B, phone records showing that on March 15th, the day this mortgage application was signed, my client was in Chicago at an accounting conference. She was 800 miles away from the bank where this signature was supposedly witnessed. A murmur went through the courtroom. I could see my mother whispering urgently to Marcus. Furthermore, Leo continued, I'd like to enter Exhibit C, the notarization record from this mortgage application. The notary public who certified my client's signature was one Gerald Thompson. Mr. Thompson, is Gerald Thompson related to you? My father's face had gone from red to pale. He's my brother. Your brother, and where does your brother Gerald work? He's a notary. He works from home. So your brother, who works as a notary from home, certified your daughter's signature on a mortgage application when she was 800 miles away in Chicago. Does that seem proper to you, Mr. Thompson? Gerald said he saw her sign it. When she was in Chicago, maybe the dates are wrong. Leo shook his head slowly. The dates aren't wrong, Mr. Thompson. The conference records, the hotel receipts, the airline tickets, they all confirm my client was in Chicago on March 15th. Your brother committed notary fraud and you were complicit in it. Marcus shot to his feet. Objection, counsel is making accusations without... I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said, her voice cold. She was looking at my father with an expression that made it clear she was not impressed. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you forge your daughter's signature on this mortgage application? My father looked down at his hands. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of the air conditioning humming in the background. Mr. Thompson, the judge repeated, answer the question. We needed her income to qualify for the mortgage, he said quietly. Iris and Derek couldn't get approved on their own, and I thought she would understand. Family is supposed to help family. There it was, the admission. I felt Leo's hand on my arm steadying me. Judge Morrison's face was like stone. So you committed fraud. I was helping my daughter. My father's voice rose. Iris needed a home for her children. My granddaughters deserve a stable place to grow up. My other daughter has plenty of money. She could afford to help, but she's always been selfish, always putting herself first. Mr. Thompson, the judge said sharply, you are not in a position to call anyone selfish. You forged legal documents and committed identity theft against your own daughter. Mr. Chen, do you have any further questions? Just one, Your Honor. Leo looked at my father. Mr. Thompson, have you made any of the mortgage payments yourself? My father hesitated. Some of them. How many? The first 3 months. And after that, Iris was supposed to take over, but she's had some financial difficulties. So for the past 1.5 years. Who's been making the payments? My father didn't answer. Mr. Thompson, the bank records show that no payments have been made in the last 18 months. The house is in foreclosure. Isn't that why you're suing my client? Because you can't afford the payments and the bank is coming after you. We thought she would help once she understood that you'd committed fraud against her. No further questions, Your Honor. My father stepped down from the witness stand looking 20 years older than when he'd sat down. As he passed our table, he wouldn't look at me. Marcus called my mother next. She took the stand looking composed, her hair perfectly styled, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She'd always cared about appearances. After being sworn in, Marcus asked her to describe the family dinner where I'd allegedly agreed to cost the mortgage. "It was a lovely evening," my mother said, her voice soft and sad. "We were all together, celebrating my granddaughter's birthday. During dinner, Iris mentioned she wanted to buy a house, and her sister offered to help. I was so proud of her in that moment. I thought finally she's putting family first. And what happened after that? We started the mortgage process, everything was going smoothly. Then out of nowhere, she claimed she'd never agreed to anything. She said we were lying, she called us criminals." My mother's voice broke, and she pulled a tissue from her purse. "I never thought my own daughter would turn on us like this. It was a good performance, I had to admit. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her." Leo stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Thompson, you said your daughter offered to help with the mortgage during this birthday dinner. Can you tell me her exact words?" My mother blinked. "Well, I don't remember exactly." "It was 2 years ago, but you remember that she offered to help?" "Yes." "Definitely. Did she say, 'I'll cost the mortgage,' or 'I'll help with the down payment,' or something else?" "She said she would help her sister." Help could mean a lot of things, couldn't it? It could mean offering advice, or helping them search for houses, or giving a small gift for the new home. It doesn't necessarily mean costing a $682,000 mortgage, does it? We understood what she meant. "Mrs. Thompson, did you ever ask your daughter to put this agreement in writing?" "No." "We trusted her word. But you didn't trust her word enough to tell her you were putting her name on the mortgage application 3 months before this supposed agreement was made." "Did you?" My mother's composure slipped for a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." Leo showed her the mortgage application. "This document is dated 3 months before the birthday party. It has your daughter's name on it." "How did her name get on a document dated before she supposedly agreed to anything?" "Arthur handled the paperwork." "I don't know the details." "You don't know the details of a $682,000 mortgage on a house for your daughter. Mrs. Thompson, you signed this application too. You were there when it was submitted. I must have been mistaken about the dates." "Mistaken, Mrs. Thompson, are you aware that your brother-in-law Gerald Thompson is under investigation for notary fraud?" Marcus objected, but the judge overruled him. "I don't know anything about that," my mother said stiffly. "You don't know that your daughter was in Chicago when this document was supposedly signed in your brother-in-law's presence. Gerald must have made a mistake." "A mistake, Mrs. Thompson, notarizing a signature without the person being present isn't a mistake. It's a crime. And you benefited from that crime. We were trying to help Iris. By committing fraud against your other daughter," Leo's voice was sharp now. "Mrs. Thompson, how much money have you given to Iris over the years?" "I don't keep track of things like that." "Approximately, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands." My mother shifted in her seat. "We've helped her when she needed it, yes. And how much money have you given to my client?" "She never needed our help. She always made it clear she didn't want anything from us." "That's not what I asked. How much money have you given her?" "Nothing. She paid for her own college, her own apartment, everything. So you've given one daughter hundreds of thousands of dollars and the other daughter nothing. And now you're suing the daughter you've never helped for $682,000. It's not like that. What's it like then, Mrs. Thompson?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and your husband have spent decades favoring one daughter over the other. And now you're trying to force the daughter you've ignored to pay for the daughter you've spoiled." "Objection," Marcus shouted. "Your Honor, this is argumentative and prejudicial." "Sustained," Judge Morrison said, but I could see something in her eyes that looked like agreement. "Mr. Chen, rephrase." "Mrs. Thompson, have you ever apologized to my client for putting her name on a mortgage without her permission?" "No, because we didn't do anything wrong." You committed identity theft and fraud. But you don't think you did anything wrong. We were trying to help our family stay together. By breaking the law and destroying your relationship with your daughter." My mother's face crumpled, and real tears started to fall. But they weren't tears of remorse, they were tears of self-pity. "You don't understand what it's like," she said. "Iris needs us. She's always needed us. Her sister has everything, a good job, money, stability. Iris just wants a home for her babies. Is that so wrong?" "What's wrong, Mrs. Thompson, is using one daughter to pay for the other." No further questions. The judge called for a lunch recess. As people filed out of the courtroom, I stayed in my seat feeling drained. Leo sat beside me. "That went well," he said quietly. "They actually admitted it," I said. "I didn't think they would. Your father didn't have much choice. The evidence was overwhelming. And your mother. She's so convinced that she's in the right that she can't see how it looks." During lunch, I couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots. Leo tried to get me to have at least a sandwich, but I could only manage some water. When we returned to the courtroom, Marcus called Iris to the stand. She walked up slowly, still dabbing at her eyes. She was wearing a simple blue dress that made her look younger and more vulnerable than her 30 years. It was calculated, I knew. Everything Iris did was calculated. After being sworn in, she settled into the chair and looked at Marcus with wide, tearful eyes. "Ms. Bennett, can you tell the court about your relationship with your sister?" Iris's voice was soft and shaky. "We used to be close when we were kids. She was my big sister, and I looked up to her. But as we got older, she changed. She became distant, cold. She was always so focused on her career and her money that she didn't have time for family anymore." I felt my hands clench in my lap. That wasn't true. I'd always made time for family. They were the ones who only called when they needed money. "Can you describe the family dinner where she agreed to help with your mortgage?" "It was my daughter Emma's 4th birthday. We were all having such a nice time, and I mentioned that Derek and I were looking to buy a house. My sister actually seemed happy for me. She said she thought it was a great idea, and when Dad asked if she would help, she said yes. She said," Iris's voice broke, "she said she wanted to do this for her nieces. She wanted them to have a stable home." It was amazing how easily the lies came to her. I wondered if she actually believed them. What happened after that? We found a perfect house. 3 bedrooms, a nice yard for the girls to play in. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of. We moved in, and for a while, everything was wonderful. Then last year, out of nowhere, my sister called and said she'd never agreed to the mortgage. She said Mom and Dad had forged her signature. She threatened to sue us. How did that make you feel? Devastated, betrayed. I couldn't believe my own sister would do this to me and my family. My daughters love that house. It's the only real home they've ever known, and now because of her, we might lose it." Marcus nodded sympathetically. "Do you remember your sister's exact words at the birthday party?" She said, "I want to help you get this house for Emma and Lily." I remember because it meant so much to me. Leo leaned over and whispered to me, "She's good." "But we're better." When it was Leo's turn, he stood and smiled at Iris pleasantly. "Ms. Bennett, you said your daughters love the house. How long have they lived there?" "Almost 2 years. And how many mortgage payments have you made in those 2 years?" Iris hesitated. "We've had some financial difficulties." "That's not what I asked. How many payments have you made?" "I'm not sure of the exact number. Let me help you. According to the bank records, you made 3 payments in the first 3 months. That was your parents' money, correct? They helped us get started. And after that?" "How many payments did you make with your own money?" Iris looked at her hands. "Things got tight. Derek lost his job, and then I had some health issues. So 0. You've made 0 mortgage payments with your own money. Is that correct? We were going to start paying once Derek found work. Ms. Bennett, Derek found a new job 8 months ago, didn't he?" "Yes, but it doesn't pay as much. But you haven't made any mortgage payments, even with his new job. We have other expenses. The girls need things, and I'm sure they do. Let's talk about those expenses." Leo pulled out another document. "Ms. Bennett, is it true that 3 months ago you purchased a new SUV? Iris's face flushed. Our old car was falling apart. A $45,000 SUV. We needed something reliable for the girls. And last month, did you take a vacation to Disney World? The girls had never been, and Ms. Bennett, you can afford a $45,000 car and a vacation to Disney World, but you can't make a mortgage payment. Those were special circumstances. You know what else is a special circumstance? Your sister having her credit destroyed because of a mortgage she never agreed to. Do you know what identity theft can do to someone's credit score? I didn't know Mom and Dad put her name on it without telling her, Iris said quickly. If I'd known, I would have stopped them. Really. When did you find out? When she called us last year. And what did you do? I tried to talk to her. To explain, did you offer to remove her name from the mortgage? It wasn't that simple. Did you offer to take full responsibility for the debt that you've been living with for 2 years? We couldn't afford it on our own. Exactly. You couldn't afford it on your own, so you were happy to let your sister's credit be ruined as long as you got to keep the house. Ms. Bennett, you mentioned that you borrowed $8,000 from my client before this mortgage situation. Did you ever pay that back? I was going to, but yes or no? Did you pay it back? No. And the $15,000 she refused to lend you for a car, was that before or after you bought the $45,000 SUV? Iris didn't answer. Let me ask you something else. The birthday party where this agreement supposedly took place, your daughter Emma's 4th birthday, what was the theme of the party? Iris blinked, thrown by the question. What? The theme. Was it princesses, unicorns, superheroes? What was it? I don't remember. You don't remember your daughter's birthday theme, but you remember the exact words your sister supposedly said about the mortgage. It was 2 years ago. Exactly. It was 2 years ago. And you expect this court to believe you remember a casual conversation in the middle of a children's party, word for word. But you don't remember the theme of that party. The conversation was important, Ms. Bennett, I'm going to show you some text messages. Leo handed her a document. These are messages between you and your mother from February of that year, 3 months before the alleged birthday party conversation. Can you read the highlighted portion? Iris looked at the paper and her face went white. Out loud, please, Leo said. Iris's voice was barely a whisper. Mom, can you add her to the mortgage application? We need her income to qualify. And your mother's response, I'll talk to your father, we'll take care of it. This was in February. The birthday party was in June. Ms. Bennett, you knew your parents were adding your sister to the mortgage without her knowledge, didn't you? I thought they were going to talk to her. Did you ever ask them if they'd talk to her? I assumed. You assumed, but you never verified. You never called your sister yourself to confirm she'd agreed. You just moved into the house and let her credit be destroyed. Ms. Bennett, at the birthday party, did you or anyone else actually discuss the mortgage in detail? Iris was quiet. Did you discuss monthly payments, interest rates, the term of the loan? No. Did anyone even mention the word mortgage? I don't remember. You don't remember. But you remember your sister saying she wanted to help. Ms. Bennett, your sister testified in her deposition that she never attended Emma's 4th birthday party because she was in Chicago for a conference. Were you aware of that? Iris's eyes widened. She must be confused. She has plane tickets, hotel receipts, and conference registration to prove it. She wasn't even in the state. So how could she have made this promise at a party she didn't attend? The courtroom erupted in whispers. Marcus was on his feet objecting, but Judge Morrison waved him down. Iris started crying in earnest now. I just wanted a home for my babies, she sobbed. That's all I wanted. Is that so wrong? Wanting a home isn't wrong, Ms. Bennett. Committing fraud to get one is. No further questions. As Iris stepped down from the stand, she wouldn't look at me. She went back to her seat and buried her face in Derek's shoulder, her whole body shaking with sobs. The judge called for a brief recess. When we returned, it was my turn to testify. I took the stand feeling surprisingly calm. I'd been dreading this moment, but now that it was here, I felt ready. I was finally going to tell my side of the story. After being sworn in, Leo asked me to describe my relationship with my family. "It's been difficult," I said honestly. "I love my parents and my sister, but I've always felt like an outsider." Growing up, Iris was the favorite. She was outgoing and charming, and I was quiet and studious. My parents always seemed disappointed in me, no matter what I achieved. Can you give an example? When I passed my CPA exam, my father's first question was when I was going to get married. When I graduated college with honors, my mother asked why I couldn't be more like Iris. It felt like nothing I did was ever good enough. Did your parents provide financial support to you and your sister equally? No, they paid for Iris's rent, her car, her children's expenses. They've given her tens of thousands of dollars over the years. When I graduated with student loans, I paid them off myself. They never offered to help. Why do you think that is? I took a deep breath. I think they saw Iris as needing them and they liked being needed. I was independent and that made them uncomfortable. They wanted me to be more dependent, more like Iris. Let's talk about the mortgage. Were you at Emma's 4th birthday party? No. I was in Chicago, at the National Association of Accountants conference. I have documentation proving that. Did you ever have a conversation with anyone about costing a mortgage for Iris? Never. Not at a birthday party, not at any family gathering, never. When did you first learn that your name was on the mortgage? When I received a delinquency notice from the bank, I was shocked. I called the bank immediately, and that's when I found out my name was listed as a cosigner. What did you do? I called my mother and confronted her. At first, she was evasive, but eventually, she admitted that they'd put my name on the mortgage without telling me. She said family should help family and that I should just accept it. How did that make you feel? My voice shook slightly. Betrayed, violated. These were the people who were supposed to love me and protect me, and they'd stolen my identity. They'd put me at risk financially and legally, and they didn't even seem to care. Did they apologize? No, they said I was being selfish and ungrateful. My father said I owed it to Iris to help her. When I refused, they threatened to sue me. And that's why we're here today? Yes. Marcus stood for cross-examination, and I braced myself. Ms. Thompson, you've painted quite a picture of your family. They're all terrible people, and you're the innocent victim. Is that accurate? I didn't say they were terrible people. I said they committed fraud. You've testified that your parents favored your sister. Isn't it possible that you're just jealous? No, I'm not jealous of Iris. I'm angry that my parents committed identity theft. You make a good salary as a CPA, don't you? I do well. Yes, how much do you make annually? About $95,000. And you live alone in a one-bedroom apartment? Yes. No children, no dependents? No. So you have plenty of disposable income. You could afford to help your sister with this mortgage, couldn't you? Whether I can afford it isn't the point. Just answer the question. Could you afford it? Possibly, but... So you could help, but you're choosing not to. Your sister is about to lose her home, and her children will be displaced, but you're too selfish to help. Isn't that the truth? No, I said firmly. The truth is that I never agreed to this mortgage. My parents forged my signature and committed fraud. I'm not selfish for refusing to pay for something I never agreed to. You never attended family gatherings, did you? You were always too busy with work. That's not true. I attended when I was invited, but you weren't at Emma's 4th birthday party. I was in Chicago for a work conference. I sent a gift. How convenient that you were out of town. It's not convenient, it's documented fact. I have plane tickets and hotel receipts. Ms. Thompson, don't you think that if you'd been more involved with your family, this whole misunderstanding could have been avoided? This isn't a misunderstanding, it's fraud. Marcus smiled thinly. No further questions. After I stepped down, Leo called his expert witness, a forensic document examiner named Dr. Patricia Wells. She was a stern woman in her 60s with silver glasses and an air of authority. Dr. Wells testified that she'd examined the mortgage application, and compared the signature to known samples of my handwriting. Her conclusion was unequivocal. The signature on the mortgage application was a forgery. "The pressure points are wrong," she explained, showing enlarged images of the signatures on a screen. "The loop formations don't match. There are hesitation marks that indicate someone was copying rather than signing naturally. This is definitely not Ms. Thompson's signature." Marcus tried to challenge her credentials and methodology, but Dr. Wells had testified in hundreds of cases and knew her stuff. She shut down every question with calm, professional responses backed by years of experience and peer-reviewed research. Finally, the testimony phase was over. Judge Morrison called for closing arguments. Marcus went first, making an impassioned plea about family loyalty and the importance of helping those in need. He painted me as a cold-hearted person who was willing to let her sister's children become homeless rather than fulfill a promise. Then it was Leo's turn. "Your Honor, this case is very simple. The plaintiffs committed fraud. They forged my client's signature, they used a family member to falsely notarize documents, and they stole her identity to obtain a mortgage they couldn't afford. When they were caught, instead of taking responsibility, they tried to gaslight my client by claiming she'd made a verbal promise at a party she didn't even attend. The evidence is overwhelming." The document examiner confirmed the signature was forged. The phone records prove my client was 800 miles away when the documents were signed. The text messages show that the plaintiffs knew what they were doing was wrong. This isn't about family loyalty. This is about fraud, pure and simple. The plaintiffs are trying to use this court to force my client to pay for their crimes. Justice demands that their lawsuit be dismissed and that my client be awarded damages for the harm they've caused her. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. "Thank you, counsel. I'll take this matter under advisement and issue a ruling within 30 days. We're adjourned." As everyone filed out, I sat there feeling numb. It was over. All the testimony, all the evidence, all the painful revelations, it was finally done. Leo put his hand on my shoulder. "You did great up there. Do you think we'll win? I think the judge saw exactly what happened here. Your parents admitted to fraud on the stand. Your mother confirmed she knew about it." Iris's testimony fell apart. "The evidence is on our side. I'm confident." I nodded, but I couldn't quite believe it yet. The next month was the longest of my life. I went to work, came home, tried to sleep, and waited. Leo told me not to worry, but how could I not? This was my entire life hanging in the balance. Finally, the call came. Judge Morrison had issued her ruling. Leo told me to meet him at his office, and when I got there, he was smiling. "We won," he said simply. I sat down hard in the chair across from his desk. "What? Complete victory. The judge dismissed their lawsuit with prejudice, meaning they can't refile. She found that your parents committed fraud, identity theft, and made false statements under oath. She's ordered them to take immediate steps to remove your name from the mortgage and to pay your legal fees. She's also referring the case to the district attorney for possible criminal prosecution." I couldn't speak. Tears started running down my face, tears of relief, of vindication, of grief for the family I'd lost. "There's more," Leo said gently. "She awarded you $50,000 in damages for emotional distress and harm to your credit. Your parents have 60 days to pay." "They don't have that kind of money," I said. "Then they'll have to sell the house or file for bankruptcy. Either way, that's not your problem anymore." The news spread quickly through my family. I received dozens of messages, some from relatives supporting me, most condemning me for destroying the family. I blocked the negative ones and kept only the few who understood what had really happened. Iris lost the house 3 months later. My parents filed for bankruptcy. I heard through the grapevine that Iris, Derek, and the girls moved into a rental apartment. My parents downsized to a small condo. I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. This was my family, and now we were shattered beyond repair. But I also felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in Iris's shadow. I wasn't waiting for my parents' approval. I was just me, standing on my own, and that was enough. 6 months after the trial, sitting in my peaceful apartment with sunlight streaming through the windows, I realized something. I had spent so much of my life trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. Now I was learning to give it to myself instead. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my Aunt Carol, my father's sister. "Proud of you for standing up for yourself." "Coffee next week?" I smiled and typed back. "I'd like that." It wasn't the family I'd been born into, but I was building a new one, people who valued me, respected me, and treated me as an equal. That was worth more than any house. I was finally home,